What's up, everyone? Thanks for tuning in to another episode of Niners News here on 49ers Hive. My name is Zach Hernandez, and as always, I'm joined by my co-host, Matt Llewellyn. And today, we're going to be talking about what we want to watch out for before the season starts. Matt, why don't you take it away?
Yeah, first thing, I want to see how the reshuffled interior offensive line kind of gels together, just for pass pro overall. Word out of camp is that they really like Juwan Jennings as a wide receiver in the slot. So it looks like, as far as from a run blocking perspective, you're going to get some big bodies out there on the edge, which should help out Raheem Mostert and that core of running backs really get out there. But what we haven't seen yet, and where there were certain problems, especially against teams like the Rams, others who have a dominant interior defensive lineman, was sometimes that interior pass rush could get through. The offensive line was a little leaky. Weston Richburg isn't going to be back until October. We're having guys take snaps at center that don't really do it. So it's going to be really interesting to see. I know they signed a guy for depth who abruptly retired. So we're looking at a depth issue. And one of the most underrated aspects of how smoothly an offense runs is the cohesion in the offensive line. I expect a pro like Trent Williams to come back and, do what he does. There was word early in camp that, Nick Bosa got him on one rep, and then on the next rep, Trent Williams knocked him on his ass. So, that he's going to come correct, and hopefully that rubs off on Mike McGlinchey, who I've always thought can be a little more aggressive, a little more mean as far as how he plays. But really the question marks are going to be on the inside. You need to keep the area around Jimmy G's feet clear so that he can step into his throws. Again, like we talked about early in camp about him actually stepping into throws and having a good looking deep ball, at least the couple that I saw. So really it's important. Just what I want to see is that the interior offensive line gets set as far as who's starting, who's going to be where, and then have them work together to become a cohesive unit for the offense.
When I found out that Weston Richburg was going to be out, I thought, oh man, I was just hoping for a nice, healthy 49ers offensive line. And then that report came out that he's going to miss the first few weeks of the season, on the physically unable to perform list. Mm-hmm. So that's definitely a big storyline to keep an eye on, is how they're going to shuffle that offensive line to kind of suit their needs. And not only that, in times of COVID, when you got to have the depth, you got to have the backups. They tried getting that Spencer Martin, I believe his name was, Spencer Long. And then, like you said, he abruptly retired. Mm-hmm. So the 49ers are kind of like, man, we can't catch a break here at the offensive line position. But for me, I think personally, I'm keeping an eye on that linebacker trio. Coach Shanahan recently said that Quan Alexander is going to get the nod over Dre Greenlaw. We all know Fred Warner is going to be there no matter what. But Dre Greenlaw played really well last season, filling in for Quan Alexander. And part of me starts to think, does the politics kind of come into play here? Because Greenlaw was a lower round pick, whereas Quan Alexander was kind of their big free agency signing not too long ago. They splashed a lot of money with that signing. Mm-hmm. So do they kind of feel obligated to play him over Dre Greenlaw? Or is it more so the fact that they really do think that he's better than him, and maybe in the near future, Greenlaw will supplant him as the starter? But that's kind of one area where I'm really keeping an eye on, because the 49ers defense, the middle unit, at least the linebacking core, didn't really take too much of a hit with Greenlaw in there when Alexander went out. If anything, It kind of went a little bit down in terms of quality of play when Alexander returned. Granted, he was playing with a torn pec and he came back in remarkable time. He probably wasn't fully healthy. I mean, I can guarantee he wasn't fully healthy. So that's likely what contributed to a lot of that. But still, Greenlaw played really well. And now he's not going to be in that starting position. So I don't know. It's just something to keep an eye on. Do you think that Greenlaw will eventually take over, or do you think that it's going to be Quan's job to lose, at least for now?
Well, I mean, of course, Greenlaw played well, but it's a relative thing. First of all, Quan was the energy, heart and soul leader of that defense. And there definitely was a little bit of a dip when he got injured. I mean, you could just see, a drop in the energy, and there were a couple of opening drives. I mean, let's not pretend like, when he got hurt, it's, we didn't play that great. The defense didn't play that great against Arizona either time. They gave up a lot of points, and, Part of that is because, Quan went down and wasn't out there. The other thing that you have to remember is Quan is much better in defending the pass than Greenlaw is. I mean, Greenlaw has looked lost out there. He would bite hard on play action and just leave his guy wide open, and it happened multiple times. This is not a knock on Dre Greenlaw, who, by the way, looked like he posted on social media after that whole thing came out and looked like he was a little upset about hearing that, he wasn't going to play. Quan Alexander is still a young guy. Quan Alexander didn't miss any tackles before he got injured. And when he came back, everybody forgets. Man, you're talking about a torn pec, and he came back, I mean, really in record time. And it just that he wasn't fully healed. He almost wasn't healed at all. He had to wear something that kept him from flexing his pec in a certain way. And really what that did was limit how he could wrap up and tackle. Again, the fans are really quick to forget, it's really a what have you done for me lately? And, it's really easy to forget. Oh yeah, Quan Alexander came back after like 8 or 9 weeks after rupturing his pec. We just got word out of Arizona that their corner is going to miss the entire season with a torn pec. So, you're talking about a guy who, again, when you talk about heart and soul leader of a defense, you want the dogs in there. You want the guys that are going to get after it. And you're talking about a guy that sacrificed his body, his health, and probably set himself back to come back and be able to be here for this defense. If that's not leading, I don't know what is. Dre Greenlaw will have his day. It's just not today.
That's a really good point, actually, is not the X's and O's factor, the leadership factor, stuff you can't measure with the stat line or with, see with your eyes. The energy that Quan brought and continues to bring to this unit, it's immeasurable. And
right.
You're totally right. And when he was on that field, that defense was flying. Man, just think about that Minnesota Vikings playoff game. That defense was electrifying. They were all over the place, sacking Kirk Cousins, beating Dalvin Cook in the backfield. Whatever the case was, they wanted to ball out for Quan Alexander, and he wanted to ball out just as much for them. So that's actually a really good point. So it does make a little more sense. Go ahead.
Yeah, and everybody forgets, like, wasn't the thing last year the Hot Boys, and like how that was like the whole linebacking crew had the nickname and stuff. And so Quan Alexander is like the ultimate hype man for the defense. The real leaders of the defense are, to me, the real leader of the defense is Fred Warner. He calls the plays, he's in there, but he's the quiet leader. He's the lead by example guy. Sherman is the old dog in the yard who's still barking at everything, and he's still out there and he's doing his thing. But, Fred Warner is really the X's and O's leader, and Quan is the best hype man that he could ask for. They're part of the same unit. He brings the hammer down, he makes the big hits, and he's the guy that allows Fred Warner to focus on what Fred Warner does best, so that Fred doesn't have to do things that, he may or may not necessarily. Fred doesn't seem like the rah-rah guy, but there's always these guys where, whether it's, in sports or whether it's in your job or whatever, there's these guys that are just so charismatic that you would just run through a brick wall for them. And that's what Quan Alexander brings as far as his, intensity. And that's the leadership that he provides. He's the one that's like, no, we can't come out flat. No, we got to come out and we got to bring the energy right now from rip, and so Greenlaw will get there. And, Greenlaw made amazing plays, and he saved the season, really. But again, just because you're not the starter, what even is that? I mean, he's going to play. So it's not like he's just going to be buried on the bench. I think this is much to do about nothing. And I think this is people asking questions. And Shanahan, again, doing what this regime has done from day one, which is be completely transparent and honest about players and personnel and stuff like that. So, we'll see what happens. I think it'll be a little disappointing for Greenlaw right off the bat. He's a young guy, so you can kind of get caught up, but he's still going to show up. And if anybody, here's the ironic thing, if anybody's going to pick up Dre Greenlaw and help him get his head right, it's going to be Quan Alexander. So, we'll see where it goes from there.
Yeah, that's a good point. He's going to be the first one to kind of pick him up and let him know, you still got this. I'm here to teach you whatever you need to learn. He seems like a great leader, seems like a great mentor. So the 49ers, one thing is for sure, they have a hell of a linebacking core there. It seems like time and time, regime after regime, their linebackers, minus Michael Wilhoit and Dan Skuda, guys like that, have been superb. So it's nice to see that. Just, you got Patrick Willis and Navarro Bowman, and now you got Quan Alexander and Fred Warner and maybe even Dre Greenlaw in the mix. And speaking of Hot Boys, I got the hoodie and the long sleeve, man. I know all about the Hot Boys. So yeah, shout out to them. But I think that's going to do it for us today, guys. Make sure you follow us on Twitter. Our handles are below on the screen. And I just want to thank you for tuning into this video, another episode of Niners News here on 49ers Hive. Make sure you hit that subscribe button. Like the video and comment your thoughts below. What are you looking forward to seeing happen before the season starts?
Go ahead and click the bell for all your notifications. And until next time, go Niners.